Mwahahaha. Welcome to Count Scapula class. Today we're going to be working on the function and control of your scapular joint, which I happen to think is probably the weirdest joint in your body. Coolest joint, but also really weird because it's just floating in a bunch of meat. It's floating in your muscles on your back. But for that reason, it sort of acts as like a transit hub for a lot of the things that you want to do with your arms, but also with your spine and your neck. So for that reason, if you can clean this joint up, sometimes it can have some really nice effects elsewhere in your body. So with that in mind, props-wise for this class, you're going to want a dowel. A little later, we're going to use that for some scap cars. If you don't have one, you could use just a surface that's sort of like going to be shoulder height in front of you. So not totally key. And then also you're going to want to just be able to sit on the floor like this. If this is not comfortable for you, then you'll want to grab a chair to sit on that you could easily grab the bottom of so that we can do some neck training partway through class. So gather those ingredients and then make your way into just any old upright position. Could be seated like this or tall kneeling or standing. So we can do our first test movement of that scapular car. And we're going to start with these just both arms at the same time, reaching those arms out, and just make sure your hands are a little bit wider than your shoulders, so you're not just reaching right out in front of you. And brace your midsection so your ribs aren't going to move at all. And then begin this motion, start sliding your shoulder blades apart to reach your arms forward. That's your end range protraction, and then start to lift your shoulder blades and your arms up into elevation. Smoothly start to bring the shoulder blades into the spine, and then down into your back pockets. Just keep going in this direction for a few rounds, moving at your pace, and really treating this more like an inventory and less like an exercise. So you're really trying to just feel out what's going on there, where do you have any blind spots, what motions or directions are more obvious or less obvious to your brain.
Where do you have crunchy bits?
Yeah, where are there some like maybe points of crunch or pain in the shoulder, and then pause and go the other way. Just rewinding that motion, pulling into your spine, and then up and forward and down. And as you do these last few, check in on a few of the spots that tend to compensate. So your elbows are one. Another one is that your hands like to try to get out of line with your shoulders. So best you can, try to move the shoulder blade and arm all as one unit. Those arms staying basically parallel with the floor throughout. And let that go. Excellent. Okay, now we're going to drill in and just look at how each shoulder blade is a little different from the other. And here's where you'll grab your dowel or set up with your hand right out in front of you on a surface. So that surface doesn't have to be right in front of your shoulder, but you know, somewhere relatively close. And then create a little tension, either pushing down the dowel into the floor or pushing into the surface, and feel the muscles below your armpit start to turn on. Sometimes when you push down, your neck immediately turns on, so give yourself a moment to try to tune that out and instead focus on those muscles below your armpit. Nice strong grip on the dowel, strong pressure. And then we're going to go super slow here for a scapular car with this. As you slide that shoulder blade forward, you'll notice the dowel tip forward. Then keep pressure down on the dowel and start to shrug that shoulder blade up. Then as that shoulder blade heads back towards your spine, that dowel will tip back. And then finally pull that shoulder blade down into your back pocket. Keep going in this direction with just the single arm. And really explore those edges. When we do one arm instead of two arms, that's when we are able to start feeling the differences between the two sides. So really try to bring fresh awareness and curiosity to how this shoulder blade is moving. And wherever you find yourself, pause and just rewind the motion. Finding end range forward and then down, back, and up. The other terms we will use in this class are protracting forward, depressing that shoulder blade down, retracting back, and then elevating the shoulder blade up. Nice, and let that go. Okay, go ahead and switch over to the other side. Now just a note, for some people this setup can feel so much better than the free floating version. So this is a nice substitute for any time you do scapular CARs, just to fix that hand against something immovable. So create that downward pressure, keep the elbows straight, and then start the motion by sliding your shoulder blade forward, then up, keeping pressure down on the dowel the whole time. Pull that shoulder blade back to your spine and then down into your back pocket before continuing in this direction. Don't worry about the shape you're making so much as being sure that you're really hitting end range at every single angle. So you're really trying to reach to the furthest rotation or motion that you can find. And wherever you might be, pause, switch directions. Now, if you were feeling any pain in the shoulder, totally fine to kind of steer clear of that or not push quite so far in that direction. But then keep training end ranges at those other non-painful positions. Keeping the dowel heavy or keeping your hand heavy for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Great stuff. Okay, so set that down. Now staying upright, we're going to go back to the first side, the first arm, and go through a shoulder CAR here. So make sure you have some room behind you. And then we're just going to start with a standard shoulder CAR. So use your free hand to kind of brace or hug yourself. Feel that brace in your midsection. Reach your working arm straight out, and then cut across your body, trying to feel for a straight elbow and a contracting chest tissue. Got it. And then start to reach that straight arm up overhead. When you can't reach any higher up, start to twist or wind that arm in order to access the space behind your back. Finishing that motion all the way behind with any snaps, cracks, or pops. And then reverse the motion, reaching behind your hip. At that sticking point, unwind your arm into external rotation to access that space behind you. And really try to get to your ear or your cheek as you come back across. Okay, nice. So for this second shoulder CAR, it's going to be a little different than we usually cue it. Start by just finding your own collarbone. That is not your scapula, but it connects to your scapula, so you can feel if your scapular bone, your shoulder blade, moves, and we want to try to keep it still here. It's going to feel a little weird. So start by reaching your working arm out, externally rotating and cutting it across. And then go slow as you reach up so you can really feel if or when your collarbone starts to move up. Then pause there and start your twisting of that arm bone here in order to reach up and back as far as you can, but just really not allowing your shoulder blade to move around. Great. And then get all the way to your hip. So the cueing will be the same, it just won't be as large of a circle. So start reaching back, don't let that shoulder blade slide forward at all, and then externally rotate, twist to find the space behind you, all the way up as high as you can without shrugging the shoulder blade at all, and then keep externally rotating as you get back in front of you. Great. Keep going just for maybe 20 more seconds, maybe one more rep, and really try to find the edge here that is only happening from your shoulder joint without any help from your shoulder blade. And just a note, this is not how we usually want you to do shoulder CARs. So it's not like you've been doing them wrong this whole time. It's just a little variable that we can tune into, especially if you're more familiar with that shoulder CAR. Go ahead. And let it go. Wherever you are, you can just relax, shake it out. And let's do the same thing on the other side. So find that collarbone and with your free hand, and then reach your working arm out in front of you, cut across your body. And then as you start to reach overhead, again, be wary of when that shoulder blade starts to pop up. Pause there and start twisting your arm bone in order to start reaching it up and back. How much contraction can you find right around that armpit? On the back of the armpit here as you reach behind you. Maybe the bottom of the armpit as you reach down. and then reverse it, keeping that shoulder blade as still as possible, twisting as you hit your sticky spot, and then really trying to reach as far overhead as you can, but just not letting your shoulder blade jump in and help. Good. Complete that motion all the way in front of you, and then keep going another 20 seconds or so, fighting for the elbow staying straight, finding how much range or motion you can get from just your arm with no help from the scapula. Good. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Excellent. Okay, so let that go. So now we're going to move into our first set here. We're going to go back and forth between these drills a little bit to give you some time to get into them. And we're going to move into a quadruped position. Any modification for quadruped that you've found works for you is good stuff here. So maybe you're on your elbows on a prop or even on the ground. And then walk your hands out a little bit wider than your shoulders and maybe turn your fingers out just so that we have a little bit less stress on the wrist. And we're going to start with just your classic cat-cow motion, curling at the tailbone first into flexion, feeling those hands and feet stay relatively heavy on the ground so that this is an active motion, moving your spine segmentally, one vertebrae at a time, all the way up until you're expressing the maximum amount of spinal flexion you can find. And then pause there, hold it. Just feel, can you curl your tailbone under any more? Pull your chin in anymore, keep those hands heavy, and now start tilting the tailbone the other way while you're still holding flexion in your upper back, and gradually, segmentally work your way through your spine, all the way back up, taking your time. Good. When you work through your neck joints and you're finally reaching your chin up as high as feels safe for you, pause there and just notice, this is as much extension as I can get my spine into. Okay, now relax that, kind of sit back for a second. So when we move the spine like that, we're always trying to focus on just the spinal segments, but the scapula are literally part of what's holding you up, so they're going to be involved somehow, and very often they're moving a lot more than we're aware of. So we're going to do the cat-cow again here, but we're going to do it from a fixed position of your scapula, or as close as possible. So come back into that cat-cow, set up that quadruped setup, and then before you start moving your spine, take a moment to feel your shoulder blades slide together, chest moves to the floor, and then feel those shoulder blades slide apart. And just do this motion a few times so that you can get a feel for, oh yeah, those are my scapula. Good. On the next time that your shoulder blades pinch together towards your spine, go ahead and hold that retraction shape, and see if you can feel the active effort that keeps your shoulder blades together while keeping your elbows straight and your hands heavy. Okay? Now keeping that stable setup for your upper body, let's start curling the tailbone under, moving into that cat-cow motion, but not letting go of that end range retraction. This will mean you get less motion in your spine, so just know that. Hit kind of like a dead end as you get through your upper back, but do finish the motion curling your chin into your neck, and then finally your chin to your chest. Good, okay? Now keeping those shoulder blades together, start again at your tailbone, reaching your tailbone up, reaching your belly button forward. And now as you work through your upper back segments, you might notice that that retraction effort actually helps you get a little bit more extension. Good stuff. So as you finish up, chin to the ceiling, pause and just notice those scapula are still pulled together, and then start again with your tailbone curling under. We're going to just work here for another 25 seconds, moving at your pace, but really focusing on how still and retracted can you keep your shoulder blades throughout. This can be a real mind fudge if it's new for you. Good. Nice. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Woo! Okay, pretty spicy. Go ahead and give your arms a break here by sitting down, and here's where you'd want to sit on your chair or on the floor. Just make sure that it's not too distracting of a position for you. And then make your hands into 2 fists and reach for the floor. And if your hands are right by your sides, you'll probably be able to hit the floor, you know, pretty accessibly. But as you reach them out wider and wider, there will be a point where you can only touch your knuckles to the ground if you're actively reaching your arms away. Or said another way, you're actively depressing your shoulder blades. Okay, so we want to hold scapular depression here. Make sure that you do have contact with the floor, because if you were to relax the scapular depression, you would notice by your knuckles coming away from the ground. So find that spot where you have to work to make contact, and then keep that going, and we're going to actually move the neck. So move the chin into the neck, and then curl that chin down to the chest, trying to get the spine, that neck spine, to curl forward as much as you can without the rest of your torso moving. Then from here, turn to look over and behind your right shoulder. When you can't twist your face any further, start tipping the crown of your head back and reach your chin up and over, noticing any stretches that you can find on the front of your neck and the side of your neck. And then try to trace your collarbone with your chin as you come back to center. Good. So pause there in center, make sure your knuckles are still working, your torso is still braced, and then go back the other way with your neck car. Turning to look over that left shoulder, tipping the crown of your head back, rainbowing your chin up and over to the other side, and then trying to pull your chin more into your neck as you come back into flexion. Do keep breathing, even as you stay braced. The goal is that both of those things can happen. Keep moving back and forth here, just another 30 seconds or so. Constantly feeling active armpits, active arms reaching. And the neck motion is sort of secondary, actually, to the set point of your shoulder blades. Final 10 seconds. Any corners that you can find with that neck motion. Trying to get all those segments to move. Great, and go ahead, finish up the rep you're on. Taking your time. And as you get back to center, you can relax and let those arms come away from the floor. Good. So sometimes you might actually be cramping the muscles from your armpit down to your hip. Not a bad thing. Just, you know, don't go too crazy so you actually cramp yourself. But flirting with that cramp is great. All right, so now make your way back into quadruped. And again, set up really nice and strong. We're going to do a very similar drill, but instead of retraction of the shoulder blades, we're going to be protracting. So start with just a few of those slides, shoulder blades coming together and apart. And this time, really trying to hone in and feel that most protracted position when your shoulder blades are reaching away from your spine, and maybe you feel your chest tissue getting really short and tight. So go ahead and hold that position once you've found it. Really scan, is there any more stretch you can find in your upper back? Any more contraction you can get in your chest? Okay, now keep this shape in your shoulder blades and start curling your tailbone under. Finding that flexion in your lower back, and then in your mid back, upper back, and then the back of your neck. And in this shape of your spine, protraction and spinal flexion kind of go together. So this should feel like, oh yeah, I'm really getting some great spinal flexion. But now keep those shoulder blades apart as your tailbone starts moving the other way into spinal extension. This is where it can get a little bit tricky. So go slow. And remember, you might not get as much spinal motion as you're used to if you really keep those shoulder blades apart here. Yeah. Good. Are you still pushing the ground away with the shoulder blades and arms? Are you still trying to feel that chest tissue? Finishing up with your chin to the ceiling. Good, and keep working 30 seconds, reaching the shoulder blades apart, keeping the most protracted shape that you can. Great work, team. 15 seconds, breathing around a hard-working torso. 4, 3, 2, and 1. And relax. Great stuff.
Woo.
Okay, come back into your seated setup. Again, give those arms a little break because that's spicy.
Yeah.
Okay, and then find that same setup we had with the knuckles again. Just a note, if you're sitting in the chair, you could be reaching down, but if you're having trouble feeling that as a reference point because they're just floating in air, you could grab the bottom of your seat and instead pull on the chair, and that's a nice way to feel your shoulder blades stay down your back as well. So reaching, or if you're in a chair, pulling on the bottom of your chair. Set those shoulder blades into max depression. Sounds very sad. Okay, and then keep those shoulder blades down. This time we're going to move the neck in a little bit more specific way. So just start turning your face to the right. So you're not tipping forward first, but you're just rotating. When you get there, notice any lines of tension that you might feel as a result. And then twist back and do the same to the left, trying to turn your face as far as you can and getting rotation out of each and every neck joint, and then back. Okay, so that's option 1. You could be finding those lines of tension by rotating. Option 2 here, though, is reaching your fist to the floor still. Tip your right ear to the right, so you're opening up a different line of tension, and then come back upright and tip your left ear to that shoulder. Keep reaching your arms the whole time. Okay. All right, so here's your choose your own adventure moment. We're gonna do 1 minute either rotating or laterally flexing the spine with active arms the whole time. You choose, and on subsequent retakes of this class, you could choose a different one. But go ahead and hunt down that line of tension that feels most juicy for you. Brace by reaching your knuckles, brace your ribs and your abs, and then here we go, your choice. I don't even know what Hannah's gonna do here. Okay, so finding that line, and when you find the line and that end range, just pause there for a moment and then move to the other side. So we're not trying to bounce off of end range, we're trying to find that end range and really get more comfortable with it, more acquainted, more familiar. That's really soothing for your nervous system to know that there's stability at end ranges. And that's partly why we encourage you to find your line of tension, because that's where your nervous system is a little bit unsure. It's gonna be different for everyone. Keep breathing 30 more seconds. Nice, finding those lines, starting to really identify them, fine-tuning what line of tension you're aiming for. 3, 2, 1, and relax. All right, that's a nice one to file away for doing throughout the day too. You don't have to be doing a Kinstretch class to get some of those vitamins in for your neck. Okay, so we're gonna let that go now, and now move down to the floor, either into child's pose if that feels good, or you could lay fully face down. Now, if you're in child's pose, you could also put like a thick pillow under your butt and sort of prop yourself up. Really what we're after here is just a little bit of kind of connection with the floor. Yeah. Okay, nice. So finding that child's pose position or laying face down on the ground, support your head with your not working arm, just placing that hand under your forehead, or you could use a pillow or whatever. Just make sure you're not crushing your nose, and also that your neck is not getting like kind of squashed and extended, but take a moment to feel really comfy through your neck and upper back. Then your working arm is going to be reaching straight out to the side. So you can kind of glance at it and make sure it's not reaching up towards your forehead, but it really truly is straight out to the side. It's also not reaching down towards your hips. okay? And then with a little bit of pressure on the floor with that hand, we want to kind of get oriented here. So just ramp up that pressure into the floor, maybe up to 10 or 20%. And then slide your hand, keeping your arm straight so that your shoulder blade comes as close to your spine as you can. Hold that for a complete stop, and then unwind that. You don't have to reach as far as you can away. You can kind of just undo that retraction. And then again, how much can you bring that shoulder blade into your spine? And then reach it away. Keep going like this, keeping your hand pressure throughout, because that will really help shine a spotlight on what is happening on the front of the arm, front of the shoulder, and front of the chest to allow you to actually pull your shoulder blade back. Good. Keep breathing, finding this, gaining insight into your shoulder blade. Good. Now next time you reach away, stay set up here, so you're sliding that hand away. Stay in this position, but just instead of making your hand heavy, ask it to get light, but don't lift it off the ground. And just make sure your neck is not jumping in. So you want to make your hand as light as you can without your neck jumping in. Keep that light hand so you're barely touching the floor, and start sliding your shoulder blade in again. Noticing, oh, it's a little bit different when I'm supporting the weight of the arm and not just pushing into the floor with the hand. Good, nice work. Yeah, hand is getting a little shakes here. That's normal, just 10 more seconds. Really finding these muscles that might be kind of new for you to feel. 3, 2, 1, and melt that away. Nice. Okay, so give your body a little breather as we get set up on the other side.
A little shaky. You're very kind.
A little shaky. Well, they couldn't see you because they were all face down, so. But yeah, kind of a weird experience when you're moving like no problem, and then you suddenly find a tweak that, whoa, that makes it really hard. All right, so find your child's pose or laying flat on the ground and your forehead set up, and then reach that other arm straight out to the side, making sure your elbow is as straight as feels good for you. And then a little bit of pressure with the palm down into the floor. You don't have to go crazy, and this definitely should not feel sketchy for the front of your shoulder. But then keeping the pressure on the floor, slide your shoulder blade back to your spine, finding those muscles that actually do this motion between your shoulder blade and your spine. Good. Taking your time here, keeping the hand pressure into the floor, and focusing mostly on how much can you pull that shoulder blade into retraction, and then just undoing that. No need to reach really far away from your body. Good. The next time you're sliding that hand away, pause for a moment and just ask your hand to get as light as you can without bunching up your neck. Okay? And then keep that hand light and start sliding that shoulder blade into your spine. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit more demand for those tissues that retract your shoulder blade. So, thus it might shake a little bit. You might feel like you have less motion there. But keep your hand near the floor so you can really feel secure and you can get a nice reference point for the arm. Shake and bake, 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and relax. Bueno. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the first side, same setup, but before you dive down here for a second, just a little clarifier, because there's a lot of cues that are going to come up here. In a moment, we're going to be working from your end range retraction, and then we're going to be elevating and depressing as much as possible. So Hannah, if you can just flip around so they can see. So basically, you're going to be fully retracted, and then keeping the hand fixed, you're going to elevate, but then really the focus is going to be on depressing and trying to find this tissue, this sort of little crescent of muscle that's below your shoulder blade and next to your spine, okay? So that's what we're aiming for as you come into your child's pose setup again. Head is supported, body feels comfortable, and that arm is straight out to the side. And then we're going to do kind of what we just did to find your end range retraction. So slide that arm in. You can use a little hand pressure to help you. And then keep the hand pressure, keep that shoulder blade retraction, and start shrugging the shoulder blade up while it stays retracted, and then down. And the down is really the focal point. So up a little bit, and then down, really trying to find that complete stop, maybe that shake, and maybe that clarity of contraction right between the bottom of your shoulder blade and your spine. This can feel like a foreign country in terms of familiarity. So give yourself some grace and some room for a learning curve, because this also is really stabilizing tissue once you can bring it into the fold. Good. Whenever you need to, you could pull that shoulder blade back into your spine, kind of reset into retraction, and then give me 15 more seconds of shrugging up and really reaching down into your back pocket. Can you talk to those tissues any more clearly for 5, 4, 3, 2, and melt it away. Zow. Very nice. Okay. Last side, last time here in child's pose. So again, set up here, make sure your body's comfortable, your head and neck are supported, and then a little palm pressure down into the floor with that working arm. Use that to feel your shoulder blade slide back, the hand slides, and now the hand stays fixed wherever it might be, and then start shrugging up while you stay retracted, and then down while you stay retracted. You might have a lot more motion than Hannah or a lot less. Really doesn't matter too much, so long as you're hunting for that spot of tissue between your shoulder blade and your spine, and especially down your back, so below your shoulder blade. That's the flow of tissue we're trying to train and talk to here. Keep breathing. Finding that complete stop as the shoulder blade moves down your back. Making sure your elbow is staying straight. Your hand is staying still. Great stuff. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Awesome. All right, let that go. Oof. So now we're going to move over to a door frame, and you'll want your dowel if you have it, although you don't necessarily need it if you don't have a dowel, but you do need a door frame. So see you over there. All right, so for this setup, you're going to want your dowel in that door frame, and we're going to show you how to set the dowel first, and then we're going to turn around so you can see Hannah's scapula. So set up the dowel so that it's just cutting across the door frame, and it is fully supported on both sides. We don't want it flying off of that. We're going to be kind of pulling it that way, so you want it to be nice and stable. That said, you're not going to lean your full body weight, so if you're using like a broom handle or something that's not super strong, you know, be smart. Okay, so now Hannah's going to turn around and get set up into this position where the dowel is about at shoulder height, maybe a little bit lower, so that you can step forward a little bit and lean back a little bit, not a ton, and use this to find a line of tension across your shoulder blades, across your back. Okay, now a few modifications here. Let's say you didn't have a dowel, Hannah's going to stay, but you could just hook your hands on the inside of the door frame, and that should help you open up that line of tension as well. You could also twist your elbows and find slightly different angles of tension across here. The last thing to tune into is, are your shoulder blades shrugging up without you realizing it? We want to kind of set them down, although they won't be able to get all the way down because you're at end range protraction. All right, so just settling in here, aim a few breaths right into that stretching area. As you inhale, targeting that area, and then as you exhale, asking that area to melt and relax a little bit. Okay. Now as you settle in here, we're going to begin our first pales contraction by gently trying to pull your shoulder blades together, but not letting your body move. So start gentle so you can hone in on that ask for your shoulder blades. You could also think of pulling on the dowel. That might help you find it as well. And ramp this up to 20 to 30%. Good. So you're really trying to contract this stuff here without anything moving, without your body moving towards the dowel. Hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2. Keep your position, but relax. Now transition over. Yeah, if you need to change position at all, change your feet or whatever. Transition over, keeping this position to your rails contraction. So now you're actually trying to push the dowel in front of you, or another way you could think of it is push your spine away from the dowel, so more behind you. The goal here is to find your chest and shoulder tissue on the front side of your body that effectively pulls your shoulder blades apart, pulls them away from your spine. Find this contraction, ramp it up as hot as you can for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Relax that. Go ahead, come out of position for a second. Okay, so a couple things before our second set. You could imagine if you're leaning over way too much, it becomes a safety hazard pretty quickly. So I'd rather have you be more upright and just find these lines of tension at a low level of intensity than being concerned about the dowel sliding down the door. You can also set your feet up in like a split stance, so 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. All right, let's get the second set, and then we will retest your scapular CARs. Find that stretch of the shoulder blades apart, changing the elbow angle slightly, finding are your shoulder blades shrugging up or down? Can you find right in the middle that allows you the most rounding? And then this time you might play with the amount of rounding in your rib cage and upper back. Sometimes you can get slightly different lines of tension by changing that. All right, so take one final breath to settle in here. And then brace your body, maybe squeezing your hands on the dowel, squeezing your abs, and then begin to try to pull the dowel towards you without letting your spine move forward. So you're just trying to engage that stretching tissue with a pales contraction. Ramp it up to 20%, maybe 30%. Maybe even up to 40 or 50 if you feel stable, but really not letting your shoulder blades move together at all. Trying to train this stuff in a long position. Hold it for another 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and relax it back into a stretch. And now let's shift over to our rails contraction, where you're starting to actively reach those shoulder blades more into protraction. Trying to find the contraction on the front side of your body. Feel all of those muscles that would push your spine behind you and the dowel in front of you. Good. You could think of this as the top position of your push-up or that position we were working in quadruped earlier. Pushing, pushing, pushing for 5, 4, 3, 2, and melt that tension away. Great work. All right, so go ahead and we're gonna move over back to an upright position to retest our scapular CAR. All right, great stuff. So now we're just curious how those shoulder blades feel after this class, after this work. So go ahead, set up in any upright position you'd like. Hands out in front of you. And then, again, hands a little wider than your shoulders. Really try to make sure your shoulder blades and your wrists stay at the same height throughout here. Let's start by reaching your arms forward, protracting the shoulder blades, and then smoothly bringing them up and back and down. Keep going in this direction, noticing that your arms are staying parallel with the floor the whole way. And maybe, especially if you're coming back to this class, try to move both shoulder blades through their full range of motion. So you're not just having them coupled together, but you're really making sure that both shoulder blades are expressing their maximum motion in every direction. That can feel a little bit like a party trick, so don't sweat it. And then pause and reverse direction. Good. Really just trying to trace that end range path in this other direction and feeling it active at every angle. So you're actively pulling yourself into depression and then retraction and then into elevation and finally protraction. Final 10 seconds. Anything you're noticing or feeling, anything that's the same as when we started or different, all of that is juicy info. And let it go. Excellent job. We'd love to hear any of those notes or observations that you had, so go ahead and share them with us, and otherwise, have a great one.